So it's 2:44 p.m. and on this day at this time 5 years ago, I was, so my husband's calculations fit, just going into recovery. So it's been 5 years. I've been 5 years all clear, and 5 years ago on this day, I didn't think that 5 years into the future I'd have just driven home from work. 5 years ago on this day, I didn't know what the end of the week was going to look like. And that's the thing when you hear the cancer word. Your mind and your understanding they kind of go into an all bets is off situation. I was only 42, and what forced menopause looks like, because I wasn't perimenopausal. I know some people are at that age and younger, but I wasn't. And kind of just be a good news story, really. So here we are, 5 years to the day, roundabout to the minute, post-surgery. Oh, so let me start with a please excuse the noise. We've got a lot of rain here, ambient sound, if you will. So there's that. I really hemmed and hawed about quite what to say. I didn't know whether to sit down and try and get some notes up together or try and get it into some semblance of order. And I think for those of you that are watching this video, potentially you've already seen the one that I made 5 years ago about having a hysterectomy and what the first 7 days after having a hysterectomy looks like. And so many women over the years have reached out to me because of that video. Because, like me, they're afraid. I think of all the emotions that live with me from that time, the fear I felt is one of the biggest weights that I carry. There's nothing quite like it. And potentially that's not okay to say for those of you that are right at the beginning of this journey. Maybe you don't want to hear that fear stays with you. But having had so many women come back to me over the other video, what they found most useful or most helpful was that I somehow said something that they were feeling that meant that they didn't feel alone anymore. So fear is natural and it's normal and it's okay to carry it with you, and I still do. Even though I find myself sat here barely hours on the other side of 5 years from surgery and 5 years of all clear. Every time I have my bloods done, let's try and stay on point, shall we? So every time I have my bloods done, I have that worry. If you're at the beginning of this happening to you, or you're going through it, or someone you love, the way it's worked for me, I'm English. I live in Britain. I live on the south coast. I am an NHS patient. I'm not a private patient. The NHS were brilliant, clearly, because I'm sat here alive and well. So it's a feeling of overwhelm today. When you start on this journey, they do a blood test for something called the CA125s, which is the cancer marker in the blood for ovarian cancer. And if memory serves me correctly, the normal is supposed to be somewhere around about 35. Mine was 100 plus. And I have spoken to people over the years who have been higher, much higher than that. After I had the surgery on this day 5 years ago, I had my first set of bloods post-surgery done on the 29th of April, 2019. And I believe that the result came back at 8. And from that day, it has maintained anywhere between 8 and 13, somewhere around there. So it's wonderful. It's absolutely wonderful. When you are an NHS patient, the blood tests, it's been so long now. I think they were 3 monthly to start with, and then 6 monthly. And I believe now I'm at 5 years. They will go down to yearly, maybe even longer at a different point. After the surgery, after the 7 days, I wasn't on HRT or anything like that. And I suppose 5 years down the line, one of my takeaways is that I wished I'd have gone on to HRT straight away in the hospital. It wasn't because I said no, and it wasn't because I said yes. It was literally that I wasn't offered it. The focus was very much on the surgery, getting the tumour out, getting me back up on my feet, and working towards that first blood test. I think it would have been I had the surgery in the February, so it would have been around about April time, mid-April time, when the menopause symptoms were debilitating. That first 3 months outside of surgery were hard emotionally. My recovery was relatively smooth. It's hard. You've got sort of, I had a bilateral salpingo oophorectomy and hysterectomy because I had a big cesarean section scar. I've got twins. So basically my scar runs from my belly button down straight through my C-section scar and stops just slightly underneath. So you've got the scar to care for. Mine was glued with no dressing or anything like that. I remember the whole thing being very, very strange. I did end up asking for it to be dressed probably about a week, 10 days later. I'd been home a couple of days. I just couldn't get used to everything, sheets and things sticking to it. It just set me on edge. So there's that. There was the injections to kind of contend with, to, make sure that the blood is moving and all the rest of it. I think that was 28 days. They were probably the most difficult part because for whatever reason, I couldn't do it to myself. I don't know why. I'm not particularly bothered by needles, but I just couldn't do it to myself. And I know I got the husband to do it, and he did struggle. He did not want to stick needles in me. He didn't want to, but we managed, and that's what you do. You manage. That first 28 days, it was just a case of getting back on your feet, listening to your body, and I mean really listening to it, listening to every single pull and twinge, and not from a cancer point of view, but from a healing point of view. I think emotionally, and we all go through this differently. I think emotionally, I really struggled with the waiting. I'm not a very patient person. I really struggled with the waiting for that first blood test. I desperately wanted to find out, and I desperately didn't want to know. Was it going to be good? Tell me now. Was it going to be bad? Can I just avoid it? All the things. We're human. It's a survival mechanism. On the 29th of April, I'd been called in. I'd already had my blood tests, and we got that first all clear. And what that basically meant is I had a clear cell carcinoma, a large tumour on my right ovary. And when they do the hysterectomy, they take I'm going to get this wrong, and I may have said this before, 5 years ago actually, they take the oophorectum, which is, I think that's right, which is like the layer over the top of your ovaries and your womb and fallopian tubes and all the rest of it. And they send that one off and they wash it and rinse it, and they rinse everything out of it, and they're checking it for cancer spores. And if that comes back clear, you can sort of think to yourself that it hasn't spread that far, and ergo it shouldn't be spreading any further, because a clear cell carcinoma that's how it works. So when that first blood test came back that there were no markers in the blood and it hadn't developed since the surgery, it's a real mix of emotions: relief, joy, peace, overwhelm. You feel like someone's handed you your life back. You feel like you've got a second chance. And then it kind of kicks in with what are you supposed to do now? What does life look like now? You do get the kind of those real dark thoughts that come in. What if it comes back? You know logically in your mind you've had a complete hysterectomy and it can't come back there. But your brain does the what if it comes back somewhere else? What is this? The trigger, is this a start of something? And there are real moments of despair where you kind of have to get hold of yourself and pull your socks up, I suppose. You kind of have to get tough with yourself, because otherwise that fear will incapacitate you, or certainly that's how I felt. And all those thoughts is random thoughts of darkness. There's no weight to them. They're all up here. That lessens as the years go by, and you do get to recognise the signs as to when they're coming in. But it is worth knowing. I would personally say that everybody I know that's had any kind of cancer, and everybody that's spoken to me about it, all has moments where those dark thoughts creep in, and you kind of have to sort of stop yourself quick and be like, nah, I have to pull back. I think I knew pretty quickly within the first month of surgery that emotionally coping with it was going to be something that I struggled with. And I've come to understand over the years that it's a form of trauma. The brain doesn't know what to do with the threat of death, or mine didn't. Some people's does. So for me, I got the all clear to kind of go back to work and do physical things May time. So my surgery was the 13th of February, and sort of late April, the 29th, when I had my bloods done, he was happy, my surgeon was happy for me to go back to the gym gently, sort of walking machines, cardio, listen to your body, don't strain, listen to your body, listen to your body, listen to your body. At the end of May, mid-May, end of May, I was due to go back to work, and I took a leave of absence from my job because I couldn't think. I couldn't get everything in line. Menopause for me, without symptoms, and perimenopause beforehand to kind of even get me used to it, one of my big things was loss of cognitive function. My brain just didn't work the way I wanted it to. I remember quite vividly, because I couldn't drive for 6 weeks after surgery. And I remember quite vividly in the early summer of 2019 of driving my car and driving along the road. And the first thought is that I couldn't remember where I was going. I remember thinking, I can't remember where I'm going. Followed up shortly by, I can't remember what I'm doing. And the panic set in. I managed to pull over. And I couldn't remember how to drive inside of about 10 seconds. And it wasn't the first time I'd driven either, post-surgery. And because I was a cancer patient, it's probably the first and I think the only time I picked the phone up and called the Macmillan nurses. I had a card in the car, and I called the number, and I burst into tears to this total stranger on the phone. And I'm like, I can't remember what I'm doing. And I was just debilitated. And anybody that's dealt with the Macmillan nurses will know how fabulous they are. And she was calm and kind and, tell me your name and it's all right, and she just chatted to me and she's like, where are you? Are you safe? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. I'm just broken. And she said to me, no, you're not. She said, it's just, you're just dealing with something new. And I think that was the first time when I really heard someone properly talk to me, to really properly explain to me about HRT and how it could help me. And literally just chatting with her for 15 minutes on the phone. And she's like, start the engine. What do you do now? And I'm like, I depress the clutch and put it into first gear. And she's like, right, get off the phone. Here's my number, drive. And I did. And I did what I had to do, drove home, picked up the phone, and I left a message with my oncologist, well, with the receptionist, and I asked for HRT, and they phoned me back pretty much within 24 hours. They put a prescription at the doctor, and the difference, I noticed the difference in 48 hours. Now, whether part of that is the placebo effect, that I was so desperate for anything to make a difference, but I don't know that the placebo, I don't know that the placebo effect could stop the hot sweats. They were horrendous. They were absolutely horrendous. By the end of the second week, I was able to start making executive decisions in my brain. I was able to, everything was starting to slowly, but it was starting to come back online. Now, I know not everyone has the same effect from HRT, and I know some people aren't candidates for HRT. I know they can't have it. But because of all the like menopause fuss that gets made in the press these days, there's a lot more options for us now, which is great. But I knew I wasn't fit to go back to like work. So I took a leave of absence from my job, and I took a job at Royal Mail as a postwoman, as a postperson, 5 days a week, 11 to 15 miles a day, and I did it for a year, just over a year. And I think in my kind of foggy state, for me, it was the best thing I could have done. I literally walked myself. I walked my brain well. There is, or better. I don't know about well, but better. There is nothing like icy cold rain, freezing days, and 8 hours on your feet, one after the other, to blow some sense into you. Or it certainly worked for me anyway. I don't recommend it for anybody. If you know yourself, you know what works. And for me, that was the real turning point. I got out. Overexposure to nature definitely did the job. Sun, rain, hail, snow, wet wind and rain definitely did the job for me. And doing something like one after the other, one foot after the other, focusing on the task at hand and battling the weather was enough. That's all I needed at that time. I remember getting to the end of the first year and kind of thinking, I feel ready. I want to go back to work. I work in academic libraries. I work in the education sector, and I do frontline IT. And I've always done a mix of that, with a little bit of library thrown in. And I was like, I feel ready. I feel ready to go and be with people and think on my feet, almost. And I remember chatting this through with my registrar, with my surgeon, my oncology surgeon, at one of my 6 monthly reviews. And I said to him, I really want to go back to work. And he said to me, he's like, you're back to work? I said, no. I took a leave of absence from my job to go and work for Royal Mail. I really want to go back and work. I want to go back to the college. And he's like, well, why aren't you doing that then? And I said to him, my brain's still foggy. I said, I'm still getting moments. I can live with the kind of the forgetfulness and the word forgetfulness. And I don't mind turning around to people and going, menopause brain, give me a minute. Just give me a minute and it'll all... But it was the actual sort of decision making that I was not firing. Do you know what I mean? And he said to me, he said, oh God, he said, I didn't realise that. He said, you're only on, 50 megs of 50 milligrams of your HRT. He said, I'll just stop it. That'll bring back your cognitive function. I didn't realise that you were anything other than a postman. And it's one of those funny things because my surgeon was fantastic, absolutely fantastic surgeon. Bedside manner left a little bit to be desired, clearly, as you can tell. But I think women through the ages in medicine, when we've got problems, have dealt with these kinds of opinions, and it is getting better. So we will take it where we can. And so I was able to go back to work, and then we promptly locked down. We very, very promptly hit a pandemic, and I know some people really struggled in the pandemic. I didn't. I got to stay at home. My children were teenagers, sort of 16 and nearly 16. Nearly 16? No, 15? Brain. Teenagers. They were 15 and my oldest was nearly 19. They were at home. My husband was at home for the first couple of 3 months. He was a key worker, so he had to go back. But we got a couple of months at home together, and it felt like a gift to me. And I think we're far enough outside of the pandemic now for me to kind of say that and it be okay. I wouldn't have been that insensitive at the time because, you know, people were lonely. But for me, it felt like a boon getting that time with them, because there was a period of time when I was missing so much. So I think that was another part of my kind of like my healing journey, if you'll pardon the phrase. There was definitely aspects of being able to be at home with them, with my family, that made the difference. And the pandemic lifted, and I went back to work, and yes, what did I do? I put on weight with the tumour when it all twisted. I put on weight, and no, I haven't lost any of the weight. And no, I didn't lose any of the weight when I worked for a male. So even though I was walking 11 to 15 miles a day, 5 days a week, I still weigh exactly what I weighed then. I know that the weight is an issue for a lot of women. I know it's not an issue for all women. I know that we all find different things that helps. I've got a friend that really finds the intermittent fasting helps. I have tried it. It does work. It does make me fracking unhappy. And maybe going back to the way I was before isn't as important to me. Maybe a year down the line it will be, and I'll commit. I still walk lots and lots of miles. And I still try and do load bearing kind of weights. I try and get to the gym once a week. I can't say that I get there more than that, and it is more for the weight, for the impact, because it's so important to like the calcium content in my bones and keeping my bones strong, particularly as I had an early hysterectomy and all that hormone and collagen and all the things and have all left my system. That was just one of the things that my surgeon said to me. That was one of the things that Macmillan said to me. Try and remember to load bear, you know, pound the pavement. It's not all about cardio, it's about protecting your bones, and that's weights. So I try and do that. I've got some little dumbbells at home. They are only very light, but I've got some little dumbbells at home, and I do what I can when I can, you know, as and when the mood takes me. And I've got a lot better at not punishing myself for the things that I don't do, and I've got a lot better at not punishing myself for the things that I do. One of the things I have found this side of my hysterectomy is that I am a lot nicer to myself. I very much take to heart the fact that treat myself the way I treat others. Because for the 42 years of my life before the surgery, I wouldn't have treated my worst enemy the way I treated myself. And I think that goes for a lot of us. We're really, really hard on ourselves. So this is, for me, this is what 5 years after surgery looks like. This is what 5 years all clear looks like. Things have been different in our relationship, with my husband, my personal relationship, my relationship with my children has become a lot more open and a lot more communicative. And I suppose a large part of that is that I don't want to be that parent that parents them and finds that we don't have a relationship outside of me being a parent. So I like to think, I hope, that there's a lot more give and take and a lot more open conversation in our house now than there was before. I'd very much kind of got myself in the mindset of, this is what a parent looks like, this is how we parent, this is what a relationship looks like, this is how we're supposed to do it, this is what society says, this is what the media says, this is what social media says. And I don't let myself get browbeaten by any of those things anymore. The life we live now is the life that works for us, and our family dynamic is the family dynamic that works for us. And I hope that that has made a difference to my immediate family, who I love to pieces as much as it's made to me. So there's that. We have made some decisions in the last 5 years, some right and some wrong. When I was given my first all clear, we lived in one house, and now we live in another house, and we also lived in another house in the middle. We've bought and sold 3 times inside of the 5 years. I think we went on the market pretty much after I got my all clear. We went on the market within about 3 months, and subconsciously for me, the house where we lived was lovely. It had a pretty big garden, and it needed a lot of maintenance. And even though I was getting my all clear, I think subconsciously I thought, my God, if I die, we need to be somewhere where they can take care of each other without all this extra that needs doing. So we moved somewhere that was finished and self-contained and easily maintainable, and on train stations and in the centre, and it did everything it needed to do. And last week, so it'll be 2 weeks tomorrow, we moved again. Well, our house sale sold and completed in the chain and all the rest of it, and now we are back in the country with a house that needs a complete renovation, and a garden that's going to need a bloody lot of management. And I feel that so much of that is me being kind of ready to run life again. Not that I haven't run at it every day for 5 years, but it's funny what our coping brain needs us to do. So this is my 5-year update, and I'm sharing. I'm sharing it with you. I hope that if you are on this journey, you get something out of this that helps you, or that brings you comfort, that makes you feel like you're not alone, or that just basically tells you that it's okay to feel all the feelings and cope however the hell you need to cope. Take care, lovely people. And if you are watching this because you've watched the video before and you've messaged me or left me a comment, thank you. It means the absolute world to me to know that something I filmed really for myself, to know that it helped. Take care, lovely people.